So today we're going to be looking at all expert battles for the Deluxe pack, for the Deluxe kind of zone on Pokemon Pocket. We'll go through roughly what sort of teams you're looking to beat and how you actually beat them. Because naturally you can just go ahead and just choose a team for the weakness, and to be honest that is pretty much all I did, and they are not necessarily too difficult to go against. You could buy battle passes and even coins from 100 all the way up to 58,000. There's also items and boosted available on Pokemon Go. When it comes to Pokemon Pocket, there's Pokegold that you can buy from the site, and also items such as trade-in from any stars from 1 all the way up to 3, and potentially more in the future. Eldorado also offer money back guarantee and also 24/7 live support. If you need any further recommendations, Trustpilot have plenty of Eldorado reviews that you can scan through and just check that this site is for you. And before you check out, make sure that you use the code POKEJT before you check out for 5% off your orders. Now the first one on the list will be the Buzzwold. This is an EX with obviously Rowlet. You've got then Pheromosa, Buzzwold, and also then Decidueye with the rare candy. This one was relatively simple. It was a cheeky Charizard that did it for me. Normally what I kind of go with when it comes to this is going against it with your Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard pairing. Nice and easy, you get a rare candy. You also have one Charmeleon so that you can get into that Stoke. Now obviously the Charizard I'm using is going to be the one that has the Stoke into then the 150 damage. I think it's just the best one. It's consistent once you get there, and to be honest it took me one try to get it done. The kind of next battles that you can do that I would suggest, and especially with all of these deluxes with how many points that we're going to need, you've got deal 1,500 or more damage, win this battle without your opponent getting any points. Charizard should be able to do that. Win this battle in 12 turns. Again, should be able to. Win this battle using a deck where all the Pokemon cards are 1-star, well, like 1, 2, or 3 rarity. Again, these ones I'll possibly do later on, but they are just pretty standard. Like all I would do with this one is get a bit of a look of the draw when it comes to what Pokemon come out, and you've just got to get quick hitters. A lot of the kind of deluxe battles are going to be against EXs. Even if you just went against used an Oricorio for most of them, you could possibly get away with that for a lot of them anyway, because naturally a lot of them don't necessarily have many big hitters that are not necessarily EXs. You could get away with that with most of them to try and do that one. And then you've got to deck, you win this battle with a deck whose Pokemon are only darkness types. Again, that's going to be more the weakness. You probably could do that with a Darkrai deck quite comfortably. Surprisingly, the Charizard deck took me the most tries. Once they managed to get in, obviously Magby being the kind of lead here, it was very difficult to come up against. I don't think I have the best water deck going against this, and I was being stubborn and not bothering to change it. Glaceon into Palkia with obviously Manaphy in there as well. It just wasn't a very well run deck. I think if you went with a water deck that was very quick damage, maybe a Greninja going in on the rare candy with then something like a Palkia to kind of burn through the energies quickly, it might be okay, but they get up into that Charizard very quickly, and even then, once they get the Crimson Storm, you're pretty much done if you don't get your Pokemon out first, especially if they're running the Moltres in there with the big HP damage. Then obviously going with a rare candy for Charizard, you've got to be very, very quick for it. So in the end, I managed it comfortably, but after the 4 or 5 tries of it, I'm not going to say that it was a quick one. It really took me a little bit of time, and I probably do need to kind of rethink my water deck in its entirety. Now for Palkia. Now this obviously is going to be an electric deck. I went with my standard, I think I went with Pachirisu on this one. It did it this morning, but you can obviously go with your standard Pikachu Zapdos deck, but I think this one, I want to say I went with Pachirisu, just the double team, just because it's a very easy and quick deck to go with. And once you kind of get going with them, especially against weakness, they did some damage, which was very nice to see. This one, I want to say, if I did use the Pachirisu, you'll see the gameplay on there, but it was very comfortable. Like, it really didn't break a sweat. Couple of hits against me, but once you've kind of got rid of one of the Palkias, you could just try and target anything, and literally once you've got them attacks rolling, unless they manage to get to, for instance, the Dimensional Storm first, you should be pretty simple to get it gone very, very easily. Now when it comes to Pikachu, predominantly you're looking at fighting. I utilized a Lucario deck with obviously Marshadow in this. To be honest, he took it down to the wire because Zorora is a fantastic one with this, and it's probably the one that maybe Oricorio might not be able to beat, because naturally some of the electrics just don't hit that very hard. So going against a Zorora who gets the 50 on 2 is going to be pretty difficult, but you definitely could manage it pretty comfortably with, for instance, some fighting on there. You could change your Lucario from the EXs into the normal one, and you could get that done that way, I'd say, more so than anything. But it is a pretty comfortable deck to go against. A lot of the fighting is very quick chip damage. It's just when they eventually get that Pikachu EX on turn, and even Zorora on that 50, it is going to be interesting, especially with their elemental switch. I believe in my deck, it really kind of stuffed up the chance because it changed it when it shouldn't have. But it's a very standard deck to go against. Pikachu has been an easy one to counter pretty comfortably. We then have the Mewtwo EX deck. Again, another one that I thought would be a little bit more difficult, but personally, my favorite deck to use, Weavile Darkrai, is by far one of my favorites, even if you throw a bit of Greninja in there as well. But just Weavile and Darkrai for this were exceptional. They are a great pairing. Once you kind of get that Sneasel in straight away, Weavile straight after, Darkrai is in there as well. You've got the 1 energy on Sneasel into then Weavile for the damage, and then obviously Darkrai just farming that Nightmare Aura. You could potentially get out kind of ran if they do manage to get the guard in quite quickly. Mewtwo can get that 150 that will do a hell of a lot of damage, even against the weakness. But the Darkrai Weavile has always been a class act deck, and it took me just one try to get this done. Very simple, very easy, and it was out the park. And even if I do lose the first one, you just go a game with it. You know eventually it will be an easy winner. We also have the Lucario EX deck. Again, this one's a pretty standard one across the board. You're looking at Psychic. The one I use for this one is just a simple Mewtwo, Gardevoir, and a bit of Mew on the side, and it did it pretty well, to be honest. I did think that Fanfi on the start into then the Dolphin could have potentially done stuff, but in the end it did work out in my favour. Once you've got the guard in, if you've got Mewtwo up to full strength, it's very hard to go against it, especially when the damage is obviously going to be more. Naturally, Lucario, Tyrogue are going to be the ones to go against this, because naturally they're the ones that are going to be fully weakness against Mewtwo. With Fanfi, it's grass, so if you wanted to chuck in a grass type there, again, Oricorio could do the damage if you really want to. You've only really got these three that are going to do anything. The only thing that you want to watch with that, personally, is the fact that if Fanfi's not in the Dolphin form, I don't know if the computer would register that, and then if they've got a Lucario on the back, they will also do the double damage on side of that, or affect, I don't know if it does actually. I think that might be a different Lucario. So regardless, you just got to be wary of Oricorio. Again, you'll have the rarity, but 12 turns without an opponent getting a point, 12 points. Again, Mewtwo will definitely do that pretty comfortably. Guzzlord was a deck that I thought might have took a little bit of a turn. We used the Executor Celebi deck for this one. Again, it depends on how you're running. Celebi in the end managed to get it done pretty comfortably with the 6 energies that I finished with, but Executor took a lot of the damage and also dealt a lot of the damage, which was nice to see. You obviously have Darkrai always attacking with the Nightmare Aura, then obviously with the Dark Prism if they go for it, but then you do have the kind of Poplio or Poipole, I want to say pronounce the name. Once you've kind of got that into the kind of final form, the poison really did take the damage, but by the end of it, it was a simple deck. It was kind of a few tails that really stumped Executor a little bit, but once they start to get the heads, was very, very comfortable and an easy win once you got to it. A setup, obviously, Celebi ready to kind of take over Executor to pretty much just do the remaining damage. I knew that nothing really could take it in one, so it was pretty comfortable in the end, but it was a very easy deck to set up, and it's one of them decks that we've had for a mountain amount of time. We then have Solgaleo EX, which to be honest looked like it should be pretty difficult if they don't get the right hand. Obviously they had Cosmog coming out twice. That one's pretty simple to beat once you get the 60 HP down. Again, I went with the Charizard deck for this purely because I thought there'd be a lot more on the steel type. Cosmog was really there just for the taking, and then once you get into that Crimson you get that Stoke and then you get into the 150, you pretty much beat everything. And when they do put a lot onto the Cosmog in terms of energy, you are very comfortably in that lead. You get into that rare candy. I don't think this deck really took that long to complete. It was a very, very simple one to beat, and even then, the trainers just didn't really do too much. And maybe, yes, if they kind of get Dialga out first, you might be in a bit more of a trouble, or potentially even for Solgaleo on the 2 energy, because naturally it's got the 120 straight off the bat. But if you can get in Charizard pretty quickly, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Then we did go against Lugia Ho-Oh deck, which to be honest has a lot of running parts for it. You've got a Pichu, you've got a Magby, a Mantike, and then also an Entei in there as well. And then throwing in a bit of Zorora. Thought this deck to start with would have been an interesting one to say the least. We did go with Electric for this, and it was obviously the Pikachu Zapdos. Zapdos going in first, and to be honest, you could probably choose a whole host of decks for this, and they did go in with a Zorora and tried to go with a Mantike. Once you've kind of got rid of the Zorora, Ho-Oh was next up, and to be honest, it did a bit of damage. Phoenix Turbo did take out a little bit, but once you got into that Pikachu, a little hand from Giovanni as well, which was always nice to see. It was a pretty simple deck to go against once you've managed to get up to them actual hit points, and we didn't even have a full bench for the Pikachu EX, which could have potentially ended the game a bit quicker, but definitely Zapdos did very, very well in the kind of damage it pulled out, and in the end it was kind of just a matter of time. I believe that maybe there could have been a better setup from the computer here, which in some times might have taken me out a bit quicker, but naturally if you've got your Pikachus in line, even if you go with them first, it could be quite an easy one. But once we managed to get through the kind of the first slot, Ho-Oh was next, and once the EX is gone, you pretty much won it. So it was a pretty simple one, but you can obviously set up with a few different weaknesses depending on what you want to target first. So that's everything. So all in all, a very simple run to go against the expert. I felt like all of them were beatable on the first try quite comfortably, and if you've got your team set up and ready, it should just be a one after the other. Takes a little bit of time, but most definitely getting them shop tokens in are going to be absolutely massive for this deluxe pack. Let me know how you get on. Make sure you are doing the others as well. Don't just stop on the expert. Get as many of them done and then finish off all the battle tasks after, and hopefully you get a pretty decent kind of pool ready for the pack hourglasses for this deluxe packs incoming.